M1 chip back in 2020, I was really happy that Apple finally switched to ARM processors, and we all have seen the power and efficiency of the M1 chip. But when I heard the news of upcoming even more powerful next gen M1 chips, I was really holding on myself and patiently waiting for them to release these chips. When they released, the tables got turned in the creators and professional world. So I ordered mine, and here it is, the new M1 Pro MacBook Pro 14-inch in all its glory. So let's begin with my first impressions of using this device. Let's talk about the build first. So the build quality of this 14-inch MacBook Pro is really solid. It is noticeably thicker than all the previous gen MacBooks from 2016 till now. It is 0.61 inches thick, but I don't mind the thickness because this product is function over form, which is very unlikely for Apple as they normally go for super sleek and elegant look. But this time around with this thickness comes bigger battery, better thermal systems, and finally more ports. Speaking of ports, on the right side you get HDMI port 2.0 and one of the USB-C Thunderbolt 4 ports. Also get a full-size SD card slot with UHS 2 speeds. Then on the left side you have two more Thunderbolt 4 ports, a headphone jack with support for high impedance headphones, and lastly the magnetic MagSafe charging port, which has made its return. It's the first time that I have used a MagSafe port. The magnets on this are quite strong when pulled laterally, but it comes off easily if you apply any angle on it. With all these ports, you can now live a dongle-free life. Coming on to the design, I really like the new squared off edges, the thick enclosure of the display. It's a more boxier design. The Apple logo on the top is slightly larger and the MacBook Pro text is moved to the bottom, which is nicely engraved. It definitely feels different and solid than all the previous gen MacBook Pros. Moving on to the display, which is also very different on these new MacBook Pros. This 10-bit panel uses mini LED technology. It's HDR. It has high refresh rate up to 120 frames per second. This 14-inch display has a resolution of almost 4K, max sustained brightness up to 1000 nits and up to 1600 nits in HDR, which is awesome. The screen with the thinner bezels all the way around, its color accuracy, its brightness, sharpness, and the adaptive ProMotion tech, which basically means it automatically changes the refresh rate of the display depending on its need, which is amazing as we have not seen this adaptive refresh rate technology in any of the laptops before. Just combining all these things, this is an absolutely beautiful display. It checks all the boxes. It's basically a mini Pro Display XDR. But wait, how can we forget about the notch considering the fact that it's a top-notch design? So the notch is housing the new 1080p webcam, which looks better than before, at least decent. I really wished it had Face ID. And I don't know why having no Face ID, still this notch is so big. It could have been made a little smaller. But as you actually use the laptop, you don't really notice it very much. When you are in certain apps or in full screen, the menu bar or the top part of the display blacks out, which hides the notch very well. Also the mouse cursor goes underneath it for those who are wondering. Okay, so let's talk about the performance of this M1 Pro MacBook Pro. This is the part where Apple has put so much focus in the presentation of these machines. There are parts of this laptop that are built by them with specific purposes in mind. These laptop chips have media engines. There's a ProRes accelerator, so the video professionals can benefit from that. The variant that I spec'd out has maxed out M1 Pro chip, which is 10-core CPU and 16-core GPU, 16 gigs of RAM and 1 TB of storage. As far as benchmark scores get, I ran a Geekbench CPU test and it dropped a very impressive single core score, and here's how the multi-core score came out to be. I also ran it through Cinebench and again it had very impressive single core score, and here's how the multi-core score is. These numbers are significantly better than my previous 2018 13-inch MacBook Pro. For the real world performance of this laptop, I haven't tested this fully yet. For that you need to wait for my full review of this device, so make sure to definitely subscribe to see when that comes out. I did a render test of this entire video, MacBook Pro 14-inch unboxing and impressions, on this variant that I have, and also I'm coming from a 2018 Intel i5 MacBook Pro. I rendered the same file on that. The render times comes out to be. So the Intel MacBook Pro 13-inch exported the whole thing in 4 minutes and 55 seconds. My new M1 Pro MacBook Pro 14-inch did the same thing in 42 seconds.
Say what?
That is ridiculously incredible. All of this was done on battery power, which is also very great on this laptop. This 14-inch M1 Pro MacBook Pro has all-day best-in-class battery life due to the energy efficiency of this laptop. This 96 watt power adapter that came with it fast charges this device very well. The keyboard, which not only looks so good in this all new stealthy black anodized aluminum inset, but also is very different from the previous generations. I'm coming from using not so great butterfly switches keyboard, you can at least understand how big of a difference I would be feeling. The travel feels very nice on this keyboard, it's backlit and there's no longer the touch bar at the top, but I don't miss it either as I have had no prior experience of using it. Also, the Touch ID button in the corner is super quick and handy. The trackpad is nice and big and feels maybe a little bit different in terms of touch than the previous generations. Moving towards the sides, an upgraded 6-speaker sound system which not only are larger by design on the body, but they sound absolutely phenomenal. There is added rich deep bass with clarity. The best-in-class MacBook speakers got even better. Either way, that's pretty much it as part of my first impressions. I'm really impressed by this new MacBook Pro, and this is going to be a huge step up for me from my previous Intel MacBook. Now I'm gonna properly use this for a couple of weeks or months maybe, so I can give you my honest full review of this device. That's been it. Hit the like button if you guys enjoyed watching, and also subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what do you guys think of this new MacBook Pro in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.